Imagine feeling constantly stressed, overworked, not getting enough sleep, and waking up throughout the night in nervousness and anxiety, worrying about all the things that still needed to be done on your to-do list. Now, imagine all of that changing and going from overstressed, overworked, and lacking sleep to less stress and finding your true purpose. This is exactly what happened for my guest today, Margaret Agard, who is a single mother of 8 children and their sole financial support while working as an executive in the high-tech industry. At the same time she was doing all of that, she had also returned to university to finish earning her bachelor's degree in mathematics and computer science. Today, we'll hear her story and talk about how she was able to go from living a life of constant stress and anxiety to living a life full of love, meaning, and purpose. Margaret was a compulsive list maker who never came close to accomplishing all that she needed to accomplish, often waking in a panic about all that needed to be done that she wasn't doing. Her life completely changed when she began taking her to-do list to God, Spirit, her inner voice, each day and asking, what is it that she should be doing? When she did this, she stopped waking in a panic, got more done, more sleep, and less stress. And she wound up finding her true purpose and got the most wonderful life that she now loves and never even knew was possible. Margaret is also a Reiki Level 2 healer and practices contemplative prayer, an ancient Christian meditative practice that grounds her. She is the author of the book series In His Footsteps, I Gave My To-Do List to God, We Sold All We Had and Followed as God Created Miracles, and Love, Becoming One with Parker. You can find more out about Margaret and her books at her website, inhisfootsteps.com. Margaret, welcome to the Be Well, Be Safe, Be Happy, Eat Ice Cream podcast. I am just tickled pink to have you today because I know we were talking off camera and your story is very similar to mine. So thank you so much for being here. And how are you doing today?
I am doing great, Brad. I have been looking forward to it for the same reason. When we first connected, you said, "Oh, you're doing that now," and I thought, "That's perfect. That's perfect."
Yeah, it's amazing. We were both kind of saying, it's a lot easier when we just kind of let go and turn our, as you call it, our to-do list over to a higher power and just let life go from there. So let's go back to the very beginning. I know you were saying it was a long time ago, several years ago, but at one point you were severely overworked, overstressed. As I mentioned in the intro, you were a mother of 8 children, which is a lot. I can't even imagine that, the sole breadwinner, and you were not getting enough sleep and all kinds of things. Life was not working for you. Would that be fair to say?
Right. And part of me was I simply don't know how to handle it. And I was an executive in the high tech industry, one of
Mm-hmm.
the few women. And so I did know how to set priorities. I read all the Stephen Covey books and all those
Right.
books. Like I knew about the quadrants and the ABC and the one, two,
Yeah.
three. Right. And I just had too much on my plate. So I say this because a lot of people are saying, "Oh, I don't have time for that. I mean, I have too much to do. I can't turn, like add what God wants to." But no, it was the other way around. That's almost like a woman with a dirty house saying, "I got to get my house clean before I can call in a house cleaner," right? Because I don't want her to see it this dirty, right? That's kind of how we are. Like, oh, my life is such a mess. I got to get it a little under control before I start handing it to God. And what actually happened for me is I handed that whole mess over. And within a few weeks, I was, done by 8 p.m. and able to kick back. And I didn't wake up in the middle of the night thinking, what haven't I done? In that sort of panic mode.
So what was like the breaking point for you that like, this is too much, I can't handle it? Or what was there a breaking point?
I think it was two or three things that happened in the course of a week or so. And one was I had been working on a paper, took it in. I had actually decided to finish my degree. I only had like a semester and a half, 2 semesters left. And so I was like, I'm going to pound this out and go full time at night. Yeah. In addition to everything else.
Yeah, yeah, right.
And
Yeah.
So I take this paper in and there's a note on the door that says the professor's sick. It won't be due till next week. Don't worry about it. And I thought, there are other things I could have done with that time. And then I met with a client who I put together this whole proposal and they said, "Oh, we're just scrapping that. We're going to do it a different way. So let's talk about the new way we're going to do it." And again, hours of work, just for nothing. And I started thinking, well, if I just knew the future, if I just knew the future, I wouldn't have wasted my time on those things. And then I thought, well, I know who does know the future. I'm going to start asking him, what should I get done today? What do I really have to do?
So that's where you kind of started to turn it over to your higher power.
Yes, at that point, I started asking that question. And I knew how to hear what I call that voice, that inner thought.
Mm-hmm.
And so for some people, I don't have thoughts. What inner thought are you talking about? I'm talking about that thought. There's that inner thought, and we have them go on all day long, and how to discern the one that is the divine from the rest of the thoughts.
Wow, we could go into that. So let me back up a second. So you already at this point believed in a higher power and all that, and had a relationship and everything.
Yes.
So you basically kind of said enough is enough. And what was the question you said that you just asked, like, what is the future then, or something like that? Or
well, no, it was more like, okay, I'll give it to you, God. You know the future. What do I have to do today? What should I do today? And that eventually morphed into, I mean, I felt needy. I felt like I shouldn't have to ask God this.
Okay.
I don't know, there's wars going on. But then I realized he does want to, using your term, coach us that way.
Yeah.
And he actually used that question to start to change my life into a life that I recognize as my true purpose, that I began to do things that brought about what my true purpose was. And so I didn't have to work nearly as hard or be as stressed.
And so how did you know, like, it was like God answering your question or whatever then? Like, how was there a feeling, or like, how did you know it was like not just like your voice of ego or something like that?
Yeah, that's a good question. And so actually in my 20s is when I first prayed and said, I don't know how to hear your voice. People tell me all the time, I hear his voice or the voice, or I thought, I don't. So that's when I first prayed and asked. And I had some experiences, like if you ask the question, you'll get the answer. But we have to ask. That's kind of how I feel. Like the divine does not presume.
Right.
Yes.
And so was like your question being answered with words, or was it like an intuition, a nudge, or?
I think for some people it's that. I have a friend who her answers come during her dreams, but in my case, it's thoughts in my head, just thoughts. You have those thoughts like, I got to run to the store. No, now's not a good time. I got to get this done first. Then I can run to the store, like that. Right. And so it was thoughts like that, but the thought would keep coming back. I would have blown it off and it would come back. And then I would no, and then it would come back again. About the third time it came back, I'd think, oh, wait. The first few weeks, it was like, oh, wait, maybe this is God. And now if I blow off a thought, and I still do, and it will start to come back, I will actually engage in a conversation with the thought, having accepted that this is the divine. I'll say, is this you? Is this what I really should be doing? And what I saw more than once, that I would do fairly simple things, invite someone to dinner, drop something by someone's house, call a person. And they would often use the words, you are an answer to my prayer. This was an answer to my prayer. And so that's when I began to recognize, okay, so it's a thought that I kind of blow off. It keeps coming back. And it's very clear and concise. God is very clear and concise. So I tell this story in one of my books about how we were going to Alaska. And we were going to serve a mission. And I was like, I didn't really want to go there because it's dark. I'm scared of grizzly bears. I mean, they would come into people's houses and
it's wild. It's Alaska. Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's not, because they have a Nordstrom's and they have an Nordstrom's up there. But I had my bear spray and my North Face jacket. Well, you have to have, right? Like, I think I got to have all this. I said, what else do I have to do? And the answer was very clear and concise. It was take a brisk walk every day. And I thought, now I use the word brisk. I'm going to say I never use it. I know what it means though.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not a common word. And often that's how his answers will come. They'll be in language I understand, but it's slightly different than how I would normally think. So I did start taking a brisk walk every day, which I understood to mean I don't have to take up, marathon running, but I shouldn't get out there and stroll around, stopping to smell the flowers, get the heart rate. And we ended up during part of the time living for 9 months north of the Arctic Circle in a town without a car. We had to walk everywhere. So
Wow.
yeah, it was cool. So yes, that's kind of how well, it'll be a thought. I say talk to God in the voice, but it's actually a thought. Yeah.
And so once you started asking this question, what would you like me to do today? How did your life change? Like, did your to-do list get less or more focused,
Yes.
or what happened?
Yes, and different. So I want to say I still will take a list because I think he likes us to work some things out first. And I usually do it at night because, like many people, kind of type A people, even before we get out of bed, we're already doing it in our head. Like we're in action.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I wait until the morning, I can be cranky when he changes my plans. Okay. So it helps if I do it the night before and say, what do you want me to do today? And then I take the list of what I have that I think I have to do. Like whatever I have on my list. And it's interesting. He will sometimes show me what's coming. He doesn't show me what's coming, but he lets me know. You know how you kind of set plans for the year? Like, you know what I'd like to do this year? I'd like to finish going through all my old photos, get them in post, put them up on Snapfish or whatever you do, right? And we're old, so we have lots of them. And it's like, yeah, not this year, Margaret. I can remember thinking what I was going to do one year, and it was like, not this year, Margaret. This year, just hold on for the ride. I mean, we had smoke damage in our house. They came in, had to redo the whole house. They had to redo our fireplace, had a hole in the front. And during COVID, and you couldn't get people to come. And it was like, oh my gosh. And a friend died. And I had just offhandedly said, oh, I'll be your executor. I mean, how hard can that be? Let me tell you.
I've been through that. That's a big process. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So by the end of the year, I was like, wow, I'm glad I didn't add any projects. Because
So you started kind of recreating your to-do list then from God, your higher power. How did this how did this make, because you still had a to-do list then, but how did it make less stressful, less anxious, all of that stuff, so that you were sleeping better and everything?
Good question. So what happened is I found that if I only focused on what was on the list and didn't add anything, didn't think to myself like we often think, I knocked that out in 3 hours. I think I'll add a few more things. If I didn't do that, then I was finished every night by about 8. And everything on the list, I would always start with his things first. That's what I thought, I'm going to start with his things first. And I also stopped stressing after a while because I thought, yeah, he really does know. And I can just, if I do this, it's going to be fine. I mean, even if I was driving in rush hour traffic, and at the time we lived in the DC area. And so you always allowed extra time for something. All right, something's going to go wrong. So I either was there a half hour early or a half hour late. That's how it felt. Like you could never just arrive someplace on time because either traffic was great or it was all messed up. And so I started thinking as I drove, well, he knew this. So there's just going to be something happen on the other end that the other people are late too. And they'd come in. Oh, I'm so sorry. This happened, that happened. I'd be like, yeah, okay, it's fine. And so that's where the trust came in. That's why I was able to stop worrying, because I thought, yeah, if he said you don't have to do that, I don't have to do that. And I don't have to worry about it either. Something's going to work out.
And so the trust.
And how did we sort of, the trust started to build. And, I do question. And sometimes I would say, well, I think you're wrong.
Okay. And then what happened?
So I tell the story. Like we had a internet business where we were shipping a product, and, we didn't ship on Saturday or Sunday. So Monday, we had basically half the week's worth of orders for Monday morning. And I can remember, I always had at the top of my list, do the orders. At that point, we weren't big enough at that point to have hired a shipping company, although that did later happen. And so I would be, and that never got taken off the list. It was always on the list. Do the orders. And he never said take that off. And one Monday he did. was like, don't do the orders. You're going to be busy enough today. Don't worry about the orders. Do them tomorrow. And I thought, well, apparently you don't know how business works here on earth, God, because I have on my website that we ship next business day. And this is next business day. And we keep our word. So I'm doing it. And then I go to the post office with the order. It did take me about an hour. And it was President's Day. So, and I had just forgotten, because when you're working at home, you don't really pay attention to holidays, right? Yeah. So the post office was not open.
It's closed. Yeah.
Till the next day. I could have let that go. And it's things like that that taught me, you really can just listen. And some people will say, they've learned this lesson early. They'll say, if a person's name pops into my head, I always reach out. I feel like that's the divine. And that's just one small bit of it. So for me, it's more, my whole life is being designed his way. And the way that's best for me. So I like to say, I got the most wonderful, beautiful life that I love, that I never even knew was possible until I did that.
And so how did this lead you to your purpose then? So let me ask you this, because everybody always asks, what is my purpose in life? So Margaret, what is your purpose in life?
It's this message. Right now, this is my message. I have books on it, and I go on podcasts, and I'm like, you just take this. Here's how you turn your life over to God. People say, I just want to give my life to God. Okay. Yeah. Well, that sounds nice, but your day is your life. Like this day and the next 365, that's your life. So what you're doing today is your life. And your to-do list is your day. So if you're not everybody is a to-do list person, Brad, but I expect you are, and I am. And I'm the kind of to-do list person that if I did something that wasn't on the list, I wrote it on the list so I could cross it off.
Yeah.
So those are the people I'm talking to. Yeah. So I'm talking to these people. Like, if you're that kind of person, this is the way you give your life to God, giving your to-do list. And he would give me some big things, like you've started your podcast, right? He had me start a radio show. Just come here and start a radio show. Often the big things are like, I don't have a clue, right? Right. But okay, if you say do it, I'm going to figure it out and do it. And would just write down step by step what I thought I had to do. And there was a time he said, stop. There was a time he said, I want you to write your life on the internet. Now, this is back in 2000, before blogs were big. And I knew how to put up a website. I wasn't quite sure how to do that, and came across the site where people journaled online and just shared it. And then after, 2 years of that, it was, now I want you to make a book out of that. And what I was writing is these experiences I was having, giving my to-do list to God, and what I was learning from it. What had happened when I did it, and what happened when I didn't.
Now, okay, so what happened when you didn't? Yeah, let's go there real quick.
So then I made that book, and then it was like, okay, leave the book aside for a while. We went off and served missions, sold our house, and maybe 5 years later came back to it, and it was time to put this book together and start marketing it. And the first book, so I always saw 3, and I finished the first 2, and then I've been working on the third. I think it's almost done, and then I put them up, like where you put them up, as self-publishing, because we had a website. We were used to selling stuff over the internet. We were used to selling, hundreds and hundreds of projects or these items. And I thought I should be able to sell my own book. And so I've probably sold maybe 5,000 or 6,000 copies.
Wow,
it's not, it's up there. It's got some numbers. And the second one, I haven't even tried to market. At some point I'm going to market it, but it's the book about missions. No, I'm like, it's not. That would be, here's my message. Take your life, the way you give your life to God is you give him your daily to-do list. And at some point, the question changed from what do I have to do today, God, just to get through, to what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? And that's when I really found my true purpose.
And
because
as you said, your purpose. Well, I'm sorry. So as you said, your purpose was like this message that you're, delivering now to turn your to-do list over to God. But how did you know that that was your purpose? Is it just something you felt within you, or?
Yes. As I was doing it, I thought, I love this. This really fits me, and this is a good message. And it's like I belong to a bell choir, and I
Uh-huh.
just have one note, and this is my note. Every once in a while, here's my note. And I was like, well, I've sold so many books. Now what? And it was, you should be a guest on podcasts. Just share this message. People will hear it, and people change. Someone
And
will do it.
And so here we are. Well, let me ask you, because part of what is going on, like in my journey, is this, I call it like the voice of fear and panic and anxiety and self-doubt, I guess. So did you
Yes.
ever experience that? Like, even though you've turned your to-do list over to God, did you ever have feelings of fear and panic and anxiety, self-doubt, any of that? And how'd you deal with that if you did?
Oh, all the time.
Yeah.
I just grew up, if you grow up in certain households, there's this, just live your life with that anxious feeling. Once I didn't feel that anxiousness. I woke in the middle of the night and it wasn't there. I thought maybe I was dying. It was so
'Cause you didn't
odd to
feel it.
not have it. I was like, what
Oh,
is this?
wow.
Yeah, but that has happened more and more often. But normally what I'll do is I'm needy. I'll just say, am I really on the right path still? Have I gotten off somehow? And I'll have that sense of peace. It's fine. You're fine. You're doing fine. And I still want to do things the right way. And on our first mission, I was like, oh, I don't know. And I could feel that spirit say to me, Margaret, stop worrying about doing it right. Just do it well. Like, just be there for people.
Oh, that's huge.
I know.
Wow. Wow.
It's a short
So,
little story. So often there's little short stories like that. But
let me ask this, Mark. Do you coach people at all or counsel people or anything at all like that? Or?
no, I really just feel as if my calling, my purpose is to say, you really can take it to God. I had a friend, she was doing a lot of stuff on our website. She's in the UK. And so she had read through my books and she said, I don't know if I can hear his voice. I don't know if I can hear his voice. And one day she said, I did. I heard his voice. I said, really, what happened? And she said, my life has been a mess. It was a mess. And she said, and I kept trying to give it to him. Here's yours, but then she didn't really. And I guess one day she was very sincere. She was sitting on the back steps looking out over her back garden. And she said, I said, it is yours. I'm giving these problems to you. And that's when she heard his voice. And I said, well, what did he say? He said, finally.
So if someone is listening right now and they're like, I like to say they're on the couch, kind of like where I was at the start of my journey 13 years ago, they're where you were, 20, 30 plus years ago, stressed, anxious, not sleeping, depressed. These are common symptoms in our
Yes.
society today: depression, stress, anxiety. And you've kind of touched on this a lot, but what initially would you say to that person to really get them to go what you did, from a place of fear and anxiety to a place of love and purpose and meaning?
It is step by step. And to me, the first step is to just ask that question. And some people are in a position where they're disabled or something. They're just at home doing literally nothing
Yeah.
on their couch.
Mhm.
And I think a good question is, who can I help today?
Wow, that's a power. I've never heard that question, actually. Who can I help today? Like, who can I serve, or who can I help today? Wow.
And oftentimes it's just a phone call. And oftentimes people are in a position, they're like, well, how can I help anybody? I'm a mess. Well, we're all a mess. Some of us hide it better than others. But yeah.
Yeah. And I know for me, I'm still and I'm probably where you were, I don't know, 20 30 years
30.
ago or something. I'm very much in that process now of turning my life over to God. I like your question, what would you like me to do today or something like that. My question is what's next? So very, very similar.
Good question. Yeah.
Yeah, what is next? And for me, I get this, I don't know how to describe it, this nudge, this feeling, this intuition, like this is what I should be doing.
Yes.
And I'll just share this for our listeners real quick. So I reached a point, I was finishing up some curriculum for my health and wellness program. And I'm like, okay, what's next, God? And I'm thinking in my head that it's going to be X, Y, and Z. And just literally the other day, I was finishing up a run and it hit me what the next step was. And it became A, B, and C, something I hadn't even thought of. And
Yes.
basically what it was to take all this curriculum and put it together into a book, which is what I'm doing now. It's like, oh man, crazy. I never would have thought of that. So
yes.
Yeah. So it's amazing. Yeah. What we do when I call it let go, let God.
Right.
Um,
Well, for me, the daily practice is what gives me the people that I help. The nudges are like start the radio show, right? The nudges are like turn this into a book. And
okay.
but the daily is what do you want me to do today, God? And it often includes at least one or two people I can reach out to or I should call. And I've had some astounding experiences with that are fun to share, but others that are but normally it's just normal stuff. You call and someone's talking. I can remember once we were getting ready to travel and I said to God, I have 10 minutes. Here, it's yours. If you have something I can do in 10 minutes, I'll do it. And it was call a friend. This friend's name popped in my head, call her. So I called her and she was so upset. Something terrible had just happened. And she's just going on and on and on, like, hi, woo, like just dumping it all out. And I was like, you know what? I got to tell you, I've got 5 more minutes. So that's okay. That's good. That's enough. And then at the end, she said, I just needed to talk to someone. And
just needed to let it all out.
Just needed to let it all out. And another time it was call woman. Well, I sometimes, I'm doing my list in the morning, right? And I thought, God, this woman doesn't even get out of bed till 1 because of the medication she takes or noon, something like that. And it was, call her at 1. So, I picked up my phone and I set the little timer and 1 o'clock I called. And she was, it sounded like she was in an airport or something. It was very echoey, how echoey, and you could hear other people around her. And I said, hey, where are you? What's going on? She goes, oh my gosh, I'm in the hospital. My brother, now she was older in her 60s and her brother was in his 50s. The doctor just told us he has incurable brain cancer. Like he was working on the roof and, and he went unconscious and they took him in. And I was like, when did the doctor tell you this? She said 5 minutes ago. I was like, when did the doctor tell you this? And she said 5 minutes ago. I'm so glad you called. I was just saying to God, I just need someone to talk to. I wish I could talk to Margaret. So now maybe God gave her the thought that the person she should wish she could talk to would be me because I was about to call. so see, like I say, he knows the future and he takes us to those places where, that's not a big deal. He hasn't asked me to go be Mother Teresa in India. And yet every day I get to help someone some way.
Wow. And so I'm going to start wrapping this up, but another question I want to ask. So just before you go to bed how you live your life now, and for the past 30 plus years that you've had this understanding, every night now before you go to bed, you just kind of reach out and say, what would you like me to do today?
Tomorrow. That's right.
Tomorrow.
And I will sit there and some of the stuff is on there, like I've got a doctor's appointment at this time, I have a podcast at 11, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And then I will have some other things I want to do. I'll have like, oh man, I'll tell you, like a nice long list of things I'd like to do. and the thought will come, like focus on this and let this other go. And often call a certain person, or when you're in town, drop by, or just be ready. Sometimes I'm out and about and the thought comes, stop, visit this person.
Wow. And so do you write this list down every night then before you sleep, or?
Oh, I'm still pretty much it's there. But usually there's only a few things on it. And, so it's, and the big, like when the big nudges come, like be on podcasts, I know what I have to do that. So I'll spend part of every day reaching out, getting on podcasts. And so it's the other things again. He hasn't told me to stop that yet. At one point he said, stop doing the radio show. So I did. Yeah.
Okay. And so how overall would you describe your life now? I mean, obviously not stress or anxiety. How would you describe your life?
I love it. I'm busy, but busy in a good way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not busy in a just a busy work kind of way, I guess.
Right. It always feels as if everything I've done has some kind of value. Even if it's just, keep the dishes kept up. Do you keep your dishes kept up, Brad?
I'm a bachelor, I'll admit. I get a little behind on some of that stuff.
I get a little behind on that.
But I'm pretty good about keeping up for the most part now, but every once in a while. Margaret, this has been incredible for me. We've talked about a bunch today. Is there anything else before we sign off here that you would like to say? Anything else for the good of the order?
The only thing I have to say, Brad, is I wish I started it when I was in my 20s instead of when I was in my 40s. That's the only thing I wish that I would say.
Because those like 20 to 40 was when you had a lot of stress and anxiety and everything.
Right. Constantly worried.
Yeah. So I'm calling this episode going from a life of stress and anxiety to a life of love and purpose. And I think that's what it's all about. And you're a shining example. So Margaret, thank you for being here today. I really appreciate that. Let me ask also before we sign off, if someone wants to learn more about you or get your books or anything like that, how can they do that?
I do have a website, inhisfootsteps.com, and I have my links to my social media there, and I have the books there and where they can be bought. And I have one of them is an audio book if you prefer to listen. And then I also, a little pop-up will come. It doesn't cover the whole screen, although it might if you're on a phone. It'll say, sign up for my newsletter. And I send out once a month a newsletter, and it talks about, the other books that are coming, or if I have things on special. And usually there's a story in it, like the stories we had today, that just kind of encourage people to keep trying to do this. And I don't spam people. I'm lazy. You get one newsletter a month, and you're lucky to get that. So
that's actually pretty good. Yeah, I have yet to start that up yet. That's on my to-do list. But yeah, I don't know if that is from me or if that's from a higher power. I'm not sure actually. I'll have to, I guess, ponder that or meditate on that maybe. But anyway, so okay, yeah. Again, anyone listening, inhisfootsteps.com. That's how you can reach Margaret. And appreciate Margaret, you being here, and appreciate you, the listener, as always, for being here. We would not, be here without you, the listener. If you are at a place of fear in your life, anxiety, stress, depression, some of the common ailments, lacking sleep, Margaret, as you were, all those years ago, simply let go and turn your to-do list over to God and see what happens. So thank you everyone for being here. And as I always like to say, this is Coach Brad saying, be well, be safe, be happy, eat ice cream. Take care, everyone. We'll see you next time.